I started to do text analysis and release a first text analysis software in 1998 called WordStat. I started to explore, and I've been doing this full time since the last 15 years now. And I did late after working as a program evaluator, evaluating social program, collecting a lot of text data and trying to extract information from that, decided to do some, to try to find some ways to speed up my work because it was time consuming. So I developed text analytics tool, developed that for myself, did the doctorate, quit my job, went back to do a doctorate degree in educational psychology. That's how WordStat was just released, and I also released during my doctorate another software called QD Miner, which is a manual coding tool. So I started to play with that. So I often say that I was a psychologist and a researcher by profession, and I became a programmer by profession. Sometimes I say that I'm a psycho-programmer, so that scares a little bit people. But so basically, and I've been doing this, and I've been doing text analysis since with a lot of people from different area. We work both with political scientists. We go to a political science conference, MPSA mainly. APSA, that's a different story. We went there for quite some time. We decided that we would boycott them somehow. ICA, International Communication, I'm going there. Yeah, I'm flying tomorrow to Washington for the ICA conference, market research conference as well. So we do a lot of things. We work also with the International Criminal for former Yugoslavia. We work with, I work a lot with Cisco, GE, Bank of America, and several banks like that. We did some project with Gallup Norway. So the thing is that we work a lot, and I've also done some work with the militaries, US Department of Defense, UK Ministry of Defense, Australian Department of Defense. We train them as well. So I've played a lot, and I was surprised when Claire asked me to do something on sentiment analysis, because I've been quite critical about sentiment analysis for a long time. Part of the reason is that I thought it was simplistic, yet difficult to do. Because, for example, among the pioneer, Phil Stone was actually working for Gallup for many years, but teaching at Harvard, developed a dictionary with 182 categories. Penny Baker created a dictionary with 70-something categories, and now we come up with someone who tried to measure positive or negative, for example. So I thought it was quite simplistic, yet it's difficult to do, and I will try to show you why it is difficult to do. So basically what I want to do is to give you some context. I need to give you some insights about how difficult it is to analyze text, okay? Because the challenge of analyzing text, no matter which text it is, whether it's sentiment analysis or not, it will be the same if you want to do text analysis and sentiment analysis. But then I will look at different methods. All those methods could be used for sentiment analysis and could be combined to do sentiment analysis. So I will do an overview of that. Then I will look at some sentiment analysis solution. We decided to do some experiment last year and try to assess sentiment analysis tool. But part of the reason was we wanted also to show how we can customize sentiment analysis tool, because that's one of the main learning from people who have been trying to do sentiment analysis, that there's no out-of-the-box solution that will work in all situations. You need to customize it. So we try to see how much effort it is needed to customize it and come up with better results. So I will try to show you also how to customize a dictionary, what we did, and I will try also to show it to you with WordStat. I will try to show it to you live a little bit what we can do. I hope that we will have time to cover everything. So let's start right away. So again, in 1989, I created a statistical software called SimStat, and the reason is that I wanted to do some statistics that were not available in existing software. So it was a hobby. It was it was a necessity, but it became a hobby. So I could generate some income. But it's it mainly was to do bootstrapping. At that time, there was no software doing general software to do bootstrapping, and I need to do bootstrapping on some metric. In 1998, I released word static content analysis and text mining tool. And in 2004, WordStat, I should say that WordStat was an add-on to SimStat. And when we started, very few people were interested in text analysis. I was presenting that to companies, and they say, why should we do text analysis? Things have changed a lot since then. Now they see the value. But of course, we were going mainly to communication and political science conference because this is where people have been doing this for quite some time. But I released in 2004 a qualitative software because there are situations where you need to do manual coding and you need some assistance, but you could combine it as well with text mining. Now, we have a lot of clients in all over the world. We have clients in about 90 countries and large corporations, as well as many universities as well. So when we started, very few people knew what text analysis was for. If I even remember having WordStat reviewed by a paper in Management Science and Operation Research magazine, and the reviewer sent me the draft, and they say it's quite powerful. We just don't know how a company would use that. And I told them, if you write that, it was in 2005. If you write that, maybe one day you will regret that. And indeed, now a lot of people see the value. But I often say that I have to. At that time, I had to educate people about what text analysis is for. Now, but since the last maybe 10 or 15 years, a lot of people think that text analysis is mainly sentiment analysis and sentiment analysis on social media. So we have to re-educate people and show what you could do. And you could do a lot with this. So analyzing customer feedback, emails, chat, call center transcripts, product improvement, analyzing warranty claims, competitive intelligence. We have done some project where we analyze patents from a company and their competing companies. And websites, risk management, incident report or maintenance report contain a lot of information. We did a big project with the FAA on aviation safety, traffic collision avoidance system, the kind of thing that I should not mention too often, because if you have to go back and take a plane, you don't want to hear about what the risk there. But fraud detection, survey analysis, open-ended question, interview transcripts, of course, focus group transcripts. And there's a lot of things. We did things in crime analysis, psychometric studies, analyzing scientific literature also is quite common. And so there are a lot of ways you could apply text analysis. So I will show you techniques that are good for all of those, but I will try to also make some comments about how those techniques could be related to sentiment analysis. Text mining or text analytics combine a lot of technique. It does include some machine learning, artificial intelligence, statistics, computational linguistics, draw a lot from data mining, library and information science. So it does combine quite a lot of technique. And it seems to be quite advanced. And you may think that if you have a text analytics solution, this is what you will get. And maybe this is what you paid for. Yet, if I had to characterize text analysis and text analytics tool, I would say it looks more like that. Okay, it is still, well, we conquer the sky. We can do a lot, but it's still, there's a lot of research that still need to be done in order to come up with good results. And to give you some support to that, I don't know whether you know Yoshua Bengio. He's the one who co-invented deep learning. He just won the Turing Award in 2018 with two other authors, one from Facebook and the other one, Jeffrey Hinton from here. And Yoshua Bengio, well, the Turing Award is like the Nobel Prize of computer science. And just won that. But he said, regarding language, we start to see some breakthrough, but there is more to work ahead of us than behind us. It starts to show some results, but it's still in its infancy. And the thing is that I will try to explain to you why it is difficult. And it is actually more difficult than analyzing image and recognizing things, okay? So I will mention 4 major obstacles, things that makes things difficult to analyze. First, there are very large numbers of word forms. So if you take almost any corpus, you will have, and if you take a word and try to treat that as a variable, you will have a lot of problems because you will have a lot of those variables, way too much to do any statistical analysis, okay? So for example, we have a data set of 32,000 comments about hotels in Las Vegas. It's about 1.7 million words, different words, but it's actually 20,000 different terms. So you would have 20,000 variables. We also did a project on course evaluation, and we end up with 35 million words. We did that on 1.8 million course evaluations, student evaluation, their professor or their courses. And so the data set had 35 million words, but 78,000 terms. Again, all of those are different and could be considered different variables because you could actually vectorize, you could take a text and transform that into a vector, but the vector would have 78,000 columns, okay? So you need to vectorize the text, and you do that for all the text you have, and you may end up with a matrix like that, but actually, if I had to represent the full matrix, it could probably go from here to Montreal, probably. Several hundred kilometers from here in terms of size of variable. And what you need to do is come up with something like that, okay? So how do you go from such large amount of words and come up with something that would be meaningful? The other problem is the polymorphy of language, okay? So one could express a single idea using so many different ways. I don't know whether you know Mel Buckner, which is a contemporary artist, but I was doing a training in Washington, D.C., went to the National Gallery before the training, and I end up on a Mel Buckner exhibit. And Mel Buckner, basically what he does painting like that, where it actually listed a lot of synonyms like that, okay? So basically, he showed how one could express a single idea in many different ways, right? So let me give you an example from those course evaluation. All of those are ways to express the idea of being boring, lack of preparation or organization. So all of those are different ways, and they may use different words, okay? And we categorize those as a lack of preparation and organization. So all of those are different ways. And if you simply look at a single word or a couple of words, you may miss a lot. Language is very, very flexible, which make it very, very variable. And you may have 50 people talking about the same thing, never using the same expression, okay? The other one, which is pretty nasty, is the polysemy of word. A word will have many ideas, okay? Have many definitions, and some of those definitions will be quite different. So I found a website that was listing how many meanings words in English had. So for example, break has 75 meanings. Whether you break something, whether it's break dancing or take a break or breaking news, all of those are example of meanings of the word break. And here I have some words with a number of meanings, but the list goes on like that, up to 10 meanings per word. So if I actually take a single sentence, okay, so this fall, take a break from the cold, catch a plane and go south. Actually, south is underneath. So if I look at how many meanings each one has, okay, there's some distortion here, but it's, you see that break is 44, okay. And if I multiply that, I end up with 31.7 billion meanings, but actually not entirely true, because some meanings are quite close to each other. They could be okay, but it's still quite a lot of things. And if you are analyzing image, for example, and you want to do machine learning, a dot has a single color. but a word in a text has many color. It could change color. It could be different. So imagine that you have an image and each dot change color. This is typically the kind of problem you would see if you want to compare analyzing text and analyzing image. The other one, of course, is a misspelling. It's not always the case. If you have some text that has been edited, hopefully you won't see a lot of misspellings, but to give you some ideas, okay, we took this data sets of 1.8 million students, comments about courses and professor, okay? We said before that we had 78,000 different word forms, 46,000 of them were unknown words, and we estimated, we didn't count all of them, but we took a sample and we looked at that about 75%, so about 35,000 of those were misspellings. And some of them proper names, some of them acronym, okay? And to give you an example, those are some examples that we found in this data set. So what I call the 95 ways of being enthusiastic. So this is 95 ways of misspelling enthusiastic. So you have that kind of issue when you are dealing with text. If you have misspellings, it may be all false negative. It may be things that you will be missing if you try to measure something because those words will not be there. So all of those 4 problems created some challenge that you need to deal with when you do any kind of text analysis, sentiment analysis being just one of those. I will present quickly four types of analysis: computer-assisted quantitative analysis, quantitative content analysis, exploratory text mining, and automated document classification. I will go into some details, and I will try to show to you as well. Actually, if I will start it with 1, 3, 2, and 4. So let's start it with qualitative analysis. And you need to choose the right one, depending on the task you have. We have quite often some people would contact us. They wanted to purchase one of our tools, and we ask them a few questions, and we tell them, sorry, but it won't help you. You will need that other kind of tool, okay? The most typical question is people want to do text analytics because that's what they heard, and they do surveys and they have 300 respondents. We tell them, sorry, but you cannot do text mining. You may be able to do some dictionary approach, content analysis approach, but it's not useful. You better do some qualitative analysis, manual coding. Well, if you have 50, read them. If you have 300, you may get some help with some tools. But if you have 3,000 or if you have 300, but every week, then maybe you should look at some other tools. So there are different tools that you could use, and you have to know when to use them. So the first one, I have been trying to put this idea since we started, that each text analytics method has its own strengths and weakness, and I will try to point to some of those. There's no single method that are appropriate for all text analysis tasks. So quite often you need to change methods, and you may not apply the same methods for different projects or different data sets. And a single text analysis task often combine those, or could benefit from combining either a qualitative approach, a content analysis approach, or a text mining or machine learning approach, okay? And you have to be flexible for that. So let's start it with this. Computer-assisted qualitative analysis. Basically what you do, you are put in front of the text itself, and you need to read and code. So a manual coding, it's like having a highlighter, a pen to put some keywords in the margin, and maybe some post-it to take some notes. But basically the computer assisted version is somehow like that. So where you could read, you select a portion of text, then you assign a code. The code could be developed as you go in an inductive way, or you could have a predefined code book. So you go on, you read, you continue reading, you find another topic, maybe you create the code, and then you apply the code, and you end up with another code. And you could also attach memos to text, okay? But of course, there are a lot of tools in those CAGDAS tool, what we call CAGDAS, Computer-Assisted Qualitative Data Analysis tool, or software. They have a lot of tools to help you code more quickly. Text searches, we did implement ourselves some machine learning derived tool that allow you to take some text that have been coded, and the software could suggest to you other text that could get this code because they look like what you have coded. And we have some query by example that help you code more quickly and more efficiently. And one common task, again, you do those search and you end up with documents that have been coded quite a lot. Then you could do retrieval. And retrieval is useful for many ways. If you want to illustrate an issue, you may have to bring some example of those issues, and the software will allow you to bring those very easily. And as well as if you want to make some finer distinction, you find out that you have a code that occurs so often that you needed to do some nuance and maybe make some distinction. For example, you have a power code and you decided to do a soft power and hard power concept. You may go back, retrieve all of those and have power, and now started to make those fine distinctions. So qualitative analysis has this principle of being able to develop, evolve the code book and make it finer, or maybe group some items together. But the ability to bring back example is crucial. And of course you could do some analysis, some reports, and compare across groups, etc. So one thing that is nice with qualitative analysis is that it is not affected a lot by polysemy, spelling errors, and polymorphy. The person will likely recognize it. Okay, will recognize the text, and no matter whether it is misspelled, no matter how this is expressed, typically a human who has a decent knowledge of the native language will be able to extract the meaning of the text. It focuses on the semantic, not the lexical feature of the word, in that even if people use different words, they will likely be able to consider them as the same if they are indeed the same. And an expert can read between the lines, something that a software cannot do, okay? Although there are ways to make some inference from text, if you want to make very fine distinction, maybe if the computer cannot do it, maybe a human can do. And I put potentially, validity, I put potentially here because there are some issues as well, okay? One of them, among the problem, very time consuming, poor scalability, is that if it takes you, say, a month to analyze a specific amount of text, it may take you twice that amount of time to analyze twice that amount of text. It is not entirely the case now because there are some ways, and we try to implement some ways to scale it, okay? And we have done that for both open-ended and text in general. But it's, and to give you an example, we had one project where it took several students, I should say students, 6 months to analyze 5 months of emails. They were looking at communication between people from civil societies, and it took them 6 months to analyze those 5 months and code them. When they finished, they had 4 more years. No way they could go on and do this the same way. They had to find another way to do it. It's also susceptible to bias, either cognitive bias or social bias. Also, I put both on the pros and the cons, focus on the semantic, not the lexical feature of the word, because sometimes you are so focused on the semantic that you don't realize that maybe people don't use different words to talk about the same thing, and words have some reference to that. If I have a chance, I may give you an example of that. But typically, and actually people doing market research or who are trying to market some ideas, they will look at which words people should use to present an idea, and they may use some other words, but they find that the connotation may be different. So they will try to choose the exact words. And if you don't look at those, you may miss those differences. And sometimes low reliability. Even a single coder can code the same text differently from time to time. So there's a lot of issue here. And of course, once you've done that, you could quantify, you could do several type of analysis. This is what some people call quantify the qual, okay? Now, some people say that necessity is the mother of invention. I think it's not entirely true. Laziness is the mother of invention. So qualitative analysis way too time consuming. So let's try to see what we can do to improve that. Okay, and the idea is, let's see whether a computer can extract useful information. And can it do that automatically? In text mining, actually, there are several features that you could implement or use. If you could simply do a word cloud, extract the most frequent word and do a word cloud, but there are other ways to do that. You could extract phrases, and I will show you how it works, name-of-type extraction. And I will show you some of those analysis quickly, but I wanted to show it to you live. So I will switch to WordStat and I will open political speeches, 243 political speeches from the 2008 US presidential race. I could have presented the 2016, but I thought many people want to forget about that. So let's focus on the 2008. So we have a lot of speeches by Biden, Obama, Clinton, Hillary Clinton, McCain, Romney, etc. Okay, so what I will do is I will go and I will try to do what I call text mining. So I will try to show you how we could extract topic quickly. The first thing I could do, of course, is doing a word frequency analysis, and it should take no time. Actually, if it okay, it went and find the most frequent words, and I have this ubiquitous word cloud here that is almost everywhere. I'm not a big fan of word cloud, but I had to do it somehow because people, and it's easy to understand, misleading somehow, but easy to understand. So word frequency is the most basic analysis. You could go a little bit later by extracting phrases, and this should be already more useful. Okay, and I will extract phrases here. Well, actually here, to give you a sense of how big this data set is, if you take The Lord of the Rings, the 3 books, and you had The Hobbit, you are not there yet. So we have a little bit more than that. So text mining can be pretty fast. Okay, so here we extract phrases. Actually, we have some compression here, but you can forget about that. But if you focus here, you can see that if you haven't guessed what it was about, if you look at the phrases, it tells even more what it is about, and you could probably guess that it was probably election, 2008, US, of course, and by looking at the names there, you could guess that it was the 2008. So it gives you some ideas, but there are better technique. One of them is to look at words that occur together, and you look at word co-occurrence, okay? And you could do that in many different ways. I won't enter into the details, otherwise I would have to keep you for the rest of the day. But one thing that I will do is I will simply look at words that tend to appear together. I have a matrix, if it's not a full matrix, but here is a full matrix with the frequency of the word and how often it appears with other words. And we have 300 words here, I believe. And I can see some of those connections, but we cannot compare that. We have to normalize that, and I can normalize that using different technique. This is a Jacquard coefficient. I think so. It is a Jacquard coefficient. If not, it may be a correlation. And there are several metrics, a cosine theta also that could be the case. But one way to extract information is to cluster them. So hierarchical clustering, basically what it will do is that it will put words that appear often together. So we have Al Qaeda, Wall Street, healthcare, Dr. King, and if I go on like that, it will bring phrases. But one interesting feature is that it will allow you to extract topics. So here I could see some topic. That's a big economy topic. Let me keep it smaller. That's the healthcare topic. We have things about the housing crisis, carbon emission, fuel efficiency, etc. okay, clean energy. Okay, so all of those get clustered together because they appear together. And clustering is an interesting technique. It has a few issues, but it's quite interesting because it allows you not only to extract topic, but it will even suggest to you a way to organize those topics, because it will tend to bring topics that are mentioned together close to each other. And by doing that, you will be able to find, for example, at the top, we have many domestic issues. But if I go down, okay, further down, I have something about education. Then I start to see something about the process, then the electoral process and administration. And this is now foreign issues. Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan and Iraq war, Iran nuclear weapons and diplomacy, okay? So that's one way to explore very quickly. One issue with clustering is that a word can only appear in one cluster. So it does not recognize the fact that a word can have many meanings. The polysemy of words, it does not recognize that. And this is probably the reason why a better technique would be to do what we call topic modeling. So what I will do here is I will do topic modeling. One of the most popular technique in computer science is called LDA, latent data set allocation. Honestly, I find it's not the best tool. There are better ways to do topic modeling, and basically topic modeling, similar to cluster analysis in what it tries to achieve, trying to find topics, but here I have to specify how many topics I want. And I get here, typically a topic modeling will have only a list of words. What we try to go is go a little bit beyond that and give a name that would make sense and extract phrases as well that are related. Okay, so, but the topic modeling has also one interesting feature, is that a word can appear in more than one topic. If it's related to different contexts, used in different contexts, a word can appear in more than one of those topics that has been identified. And I can increase number of topics, try to find those that are the most relevant. I could go for finer topic and extract not 40, but maybe 100 topic. Or I could go and try to retrieve only 10 topic. And this is one issue with that, it's not hierarchical, so you don't know exactly when to stop and how to choose topic. But the idea is that it gives quite a good feeling of what the text is about. If I look at those, it will give me quite a lot of good ideas of what they talk about in this text. So that's a great way to extract information quickly. It's not a good method to do topic modeling. If I wrote a paper on that, we compare it with two other methods. One of them is actually LDA was invented in 2003 by David Blay. It was somehow an extension of PLSA, which is probabilistic LSA, latent semantic analysis. I think it was in 1999, something like that. And we actually implemented topic modeling using factor analysis. It was done this way in 1963 by Borkhoff in information science, by Ikers and Arway in psychology and computation. And there has been several people who have done topic modeling before. It was not called topic modeling. And we actually, when we tried to implement LDA, we tested and we found that it was not good. So we did a study, independent study with people from Concordia to try to see whether we could compare results. And we found that topic extracted with factor analysis, with random access rotation, or with NMF, or non-negative matrix factorization, will give better results, better topics than LDA. And we give that to judge external experts. And they had to choose, in a forced choice situation, they had to choose which topic they prefer. And most of the time they choose, I think twice as many time in some experiment, they choose topic extract with factor analysis, with random access rotation, or with NMF versus LDA. LDA, a lot of high frequency words will appear in maybe 20, 30 topics. If you extract 50 topics, high frequency words will appear in too many topics, and there's a lack of independence between topics. I call that quick and dirty. That's a quick way, but a dirty way to measure what things is about, especially if you are looking at the frequency. We have the frequency here on the side, a very crude way to do that. And I remember we have one of our clients is Southwest Airlines. So they have been doing some analysis on customer feedback, and they have been doing for many years topic modeling on the text. For me, and they were making decisions about what to do because they had millions of comments from customers. When you fly with them, you receive a survey, typically 2 questions. How was your experience from 1 to 5? And put a comment, sometimes from 0 to 10 if you do an NPS, Net Promoter Score, but typically either 1 to 5, 0 to 10. Then you have a comment, and they are analyzing those comments, and they can extract quite a lot of information from that, and they make decisions. And knowing that it's a crude way to analyze that because the misspellings are not there, we thought that we should improve that. And we know that in terms of quantification that it's not perfect. That's the reason why we are doing some research to improve efficiency. So when I see a topic, and let me go there, for example, I take Al-Qaeda, we try to bring other phrases that could be added as well as exception. And we found that, well, if Al is followed by Gore, because topic modeling is a bag of word approach. So Qaeda and Al are highly related and have eye loading for this factor. But when Al is followed by Gore, it's probably not Al-Qaeda, right? So, but also we try to find as well the misspelling, okay? And it did found Petrus to be, I think it suggested here at the top, that General Petrus may be associated with that, with Al-Qaeda, Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. So we try to go beyond that, but it is challenging. We have, I have a researcher who is doing that full time since many months, trying to find ways to improve that. This is part of the thing that we came up with. Yeah, maybe there's other techniques that are quite useful, especially if you do sentiment analysis, is that you can do crosstabs. You can simply look at how words are related to some outcome. And if you have some comments, sentiment analysis comments with some ratings, you can look at which words are associated with which ratings, and we will see later how it can help you. Okay, but here I could simply do some statistics. I could do in this case, I could do a chi-square to see how. Well, let me move that. Okay. How things are associated with different candidates. We also did something that tried to summarize what are the words that are used quite often by some candidates, what are the words that are less used by these candidates. But of course, I could also do correspondence analysis that will show me how words are associated with some outcome or some group of people. Here, it's candidates. And I can even see that in 3D. And I will see, we will see later that when you do that on some sentiment score or rating scores, you could actually get a lot of insights about what words are used to express some expression, okay? And I could do that with words, with phrases. I could do that as well with topics if I want, okay? So this is text mining. Pros, very fast. Very little effort. And actually no expertise. You don't need an expertise to do that. You could create a word cloud very easily. You could even do a topic modeling without any knowledge of this. It's inductive, is that it won't be affected by what you're expecting to see in the text. It will give you the results that is there. But there are some issues, okay? One of them, it is sensitive to polymorphy. So the software, even topic modeling, try to bring things that may be similar. The clustering as well will try to bring synonyms together. So the polymorphy is one issue. Is one issue that is still partially. Polysemy could be problematic, especially for clustering, and spelling errors as well will be problematic because you may miss quite a lot if you don't, if you have a lot of misspellings and if you don't fix those. It requires large data sets. That's the reason why we tell some people that, sorry, they cannot do text mining because they don't have large data sets. The thing is that if you do a clustering or a topic modeling on two waves of data, you may get different topics and you won't be able to really compare those. Okay, the solution will be unique to the data you have. It's also imprecise quantification. If you want to see how frequently it appears, remember all the misspellings will be false negative, so you will underestimate, and maybe some words will be put together in some weights that will make it too frequent, so you will have also false positive. So it could be problematic. And it is also sensitive to low frequency events. So it looks for patterns. So it won't find this small bright idea that someone tells you, or a unique event that is so unique that there's no pattern around it. Okay? And if you're looking for something specific, you may not be able to get it. A good example, if you're looking for, I don't know, you look for signs of incidents, you try to prevent a school shooting, or you want to prevent someone from committing suicide, you don't want to miss that, or do a terrorist attack. You don't want to miss those, and they are very low frequency, so you need to be able to get those. And if you do a topic modeling like that, you won't see that necessarily, unless you have a pretty good samples of people who did commit suicide or something like that. But and it's also sensitive to structured text element. Two examples of that. We did a project with a company. We were analyzing their contracts, their service contract, and we tried it because they wanted to, they just integrated another company and they wanted to see what kind of combination of service they were offering. We did a topic modeling on that, and what we found was the 4 boilerplates. And because those were making the patterns, the questions, the instructions, the disclaimer at the end, and something like that. So it is sensitive to that. And we also did that on a magazine, a market research magazine, Quirks. And we analyzed 25 years of this magazine. We did a topic modeling, and what did we get? Ads, text from ads, because ads are repeated. Okay, so when you have that kind of thing, a thing like topic modeling or clustering may not give you something interesting because it will tend to bring you repeated elements. And I put in the pros, but also in the cons, it's inductive. If you're looking for something specific, the software won't necessarily tell you. Okay? Which brings me to content analysis. Content analysis basically is a way to tell the software what to look for. And you do that by building dictionaries. And you ignore what maybe what the other ones have been doing. And once you've done that, you could quantify the text and could go on and come up and do correspondence analysis, like here, but on content categories, do those word cloud, those type of chart. This is multidimensional scaling, clustering, etc. Okay. So, and you do that by building taxonomies like that. So here it's actually many different dictionaries. On the left, you have a dictionary that we created for a survey. They were asking online gamers whether they were developing any real-life skills. And most of them said no, or are you kidding? But many of them mentioned a few things, like leadership, problem solving, etc. So we tried to put together all those expressions, and by extracting phrases, we could create those dictionaries easily and then quantify. Okay, and in the middle, that's something that we try to do for the FAA on human errors by pilots at the top. And on the right, it's part of the Luke, no, not the Luke, the RID dictionary, regressive imagery dictionary that explores some emotion, okay? And you see some words associated with aggression, anxiety, sadness. So typically sentiment analysis, one of the methods to do it is this way. You simply try to get a list of words that are used positively or negatively and try to see whether you could predict some sentiment or measure some sentiment. Now, it has some benefits, and actually let me show you in WordStat. Typically this is done here. This is a brand personality dictionary that tried to look at from the kind of brand personalities or personalities that brand may have, and that if you are selling a perfume, you may want to use sophistication words, and if your clients use ruggedness words, then maybe you should rebrand it or sell it for active man and things like that. So and if you are selling a BMW, maybe competence or excitement, maybe the words you may want to use, right? But there are other dictionaries, and the RID is one example of that, which was created by a psychoanalyst, but it looks at different kind of concepts, okay, with those anxiety words that we saw, but it's a psychoanalyst. You could see that simply by looking here, okay? And maybe one of the most interesting dictionary that I've seen, well, first to show you one sentiment dictionary is this one from Lowerman McDonald that tried to develop a dictionary specific to financial news, okay? Okay, and but one of the interesting dictionary that I found, and it took me some time to find it, is the communication ambiguity scale. It tried to look at someone who is talking about something in an ambiguous way, and it was initially developed to assess practice teachers who were not ready to teach, to see whether they were ready to teach or not. And if you are doing a lot of errors, okay, use a lot of those terms. If you use a lot of approximation or fuzzy quantification, then maybe you're not ready to teach. It has been used in many different contexts. I learned about that. One of our first clients, U.S. Office of Personnel Management, they were analyzing questions used for personnel selection, and they were trying to identify those who were ambiguous. So they applied this dictionary, and they also had two other items for any reference to gender and race, because they want to identify those that could be potentially biased. And they applied that, and they were able to go from 22,000 questions that were evaluated to a much smaller number. I think it was 400 that were either I on the communication ambiguity or on the gender or race reference to see whether you need to be revised. Okay, we work with the International Criminal Tribunal for former Yugoslavia. We showed them this dictionary, and they told us that wonderful, because we could assess how good the witness is, because they had so many witness and testimonies and transcripts of those witness testimonies, and they say we could look at those and chose those that are unambiguous in the way how they recalled information. Okay. The next question was, is there a Croatian or Serbian version of it? Which was no. But the idea is that that's an example of how a dictionary can measure more than what people are talking about, but maybe something more latent, like competition and ambiguity, lack of mastery of some subject matter, or sentiment would be another way to look at some underlying concept. Okay, so one pro of content analysis can be it can measure more accurately, because you could go for those misspellings, you could go for those different expressions and put those together. It can be focused. and multifocus, you could have different dictionaries that will show you different aspects of the text. It allows full automation. If people are doing surveys and they analyze text and they develop a dictionary for that, they could reapply it the next time they will get similar data. And there are some companies who are doing online data collection, ongoing data collection, or tracking surveys. If you develop a dictionary for one of those for a year or a couple of years of the survey, you could reapply the dictionary on new data sets. You typically have to do some maintenance, have some new misspellings, some synonyms, or new topics, but typically you could reapply and save a lot of time. It allows comparison over time because it will apply the same rules at different time points. And it allows measurement of latent dimension, like the communication ambiguity scale. And also one benefit is that they are publicly or commercially available dictionary that you could use. There's one on, well, we do have probably 10 different dictionaries that we have on a website. One of them is for corporate social responsibility. If you want to measure that in the company's reports, annual reports, you could do that. An example of that, Linguistic Inquiry and Word Count by Penny Baker, Martindale Regressive Imagery Dictionary, Communication Vagueness Dictionary that I just showed you, and the Brand Personality Dictionary as well. All of those are dictionaries that exist that try to look at psychometric properties. But there are also social political measurement like diction. ARC has a software that will try to measure rhetoric, political rhetoric, and will come up with some dimension. Lastwell and Stone also developed dictionaries. Phil Stone developed Journal Inquirer in early 1960s. And it's even by today's standards is a quite impressive dictionary with 182 categories. Okay. And there are also several dictionaries that exist for sentiment analysis. Okay, brand personality. This is an example of the different words associated with those. Communication vagueness dictionary, some of those words. So those are the pros, but there are some cons. So the time required to construct and validate dictionary, it takes time to build that. You will save time overall if you reapply that later, or if you have a very large data sets, it may be faster doing that than reading all the text, but it does take time to do that and to validate that. And we usually teach what are the best practices to construct and validate. Also, you have to be careful about improper use of dictionary. And because you have to remember that each dictionary was developed for a specific purpose on a specific data sets, and if you apply it on a different data sets, you may come up with some result that may not be representative. And it's true also for sentiment analysis. Some sentiment analysis has been done for some specific type of data, and if you apply that in a different context, don't expect to get necessarily good results. So you need to customize that, and I will show you how we did that, okay? As an example, well, first, if you want to build dictionaries, of course, if you do clustering and topic modeling, it will tell you right away some ideas of what the text contains. It will also do, if you simply get a list of the most frequent words, it could be useful, and I will try, if we have time, to show you that if trying to do that for building sentiment analysis. And I could do phrase extraction, I could do a name entity recognition, and you could use also thesaurus, lexical database behind. We did integrate those into WordStat, some of those into WordStat in many language, but if you don't, you could simply take the paper version and try to find the synonyms of those. But of course, or go to the internet and get some. Identifying inflected forms, if you only put the singular form, you may miss the plural form. Same thing for verbs. And of course, the misspellings, okay? To give you an example of a improper use of the dictionary, this is actually, we did analyze those same speech that I showed you before using the Luke dictionary And this is what we get for the sexual dimension, okay? Based on that, I could write a paper and try to explain why Romney was so obsessed with sexual matters, or Kucinich or Clinton compared to the other one. But then what you do is that you look at the words and you find that anybody who is talking about Dick Cheney would score high on the sexual scale. Kissinger as well, or Virginian as well. And there are a lot of those words, and actually bipartisan. Actually, I'm pretty sure that when Republicans and Democrats talk about bipartisan, they don't think about sexual relationship, right? Okay, so although there are some examples of that, but okay, and also so there will be a lot of false positive, but also some of those you could actually, since the dictionary has been built with a specific dictionary with a specific theory in mind, you may agree or not with some of those items. For example, love, the word love, okay, is it necessarily sexual? Well, I tend to give an example. In this case, I think that Clinton was the one who used the word love. Typically, women use the word love more often than men, but that was not true for 2016. Trump was the one who used the word love more often. Although, in terms of sexual scale, maybe that's representative. Maybe we should count love as an example of sexual obsession, okay? Passion, okay, breast cancer, okay? Is this necessarily sexual? Yeah, that's an issue that you have to be aware of. Some words will shift in their meanings or their use over time. Yeah, it's tricky, so you have to be aware of that. And there are one way to deal with that. For example, you could look at how co-occurrence changes over time. So this word co-occur with some of those words at that time point, say 50 years ago. But if you look at the co-occurrence today, maybe you will find that it did change. Like you did mention that attitude was one of your area of interest. Initially, attitude in the 19th century was more a body position. It has nothing to do with a psychological. Now it changed to something more psychological. Okay, so the other approach, the fourth approach, is machine learning. And machine learning, typically, what you do is that you feed the software with some document that has been categorized, mutually exclusive categories, and you ask the software to guess and come up with results and come up with rules that when you will apply those rules, you will be able to take documents that have not been classified, and the software will apply the rules and try to categorize those. In terms of accuracy, how accurate it is, I often say that the accuracy is between 0 and 100%. So that's the best I could do. I've seen examples where it doesn't work at all. Actually, some people say for sentiment analysis, if you try to predict whether it's positive or negative, they say it's probably at least 50%. Yet, I've seen example where it was below that, below chance. Because if you simply try to do to predict positive, negative, flip of a coin will give you 50% good. Good results, assuming that you have a 50% distribution of positive and negative. But I've seen an example where most of the comments were positive and most of the outcome of the sentiment classifier was negative. And there are reasons for that. And I'll try to go back with that. So machine learning, there are many techniques, naive Bayes, k-nearest neighbor, decision tree, random forest, deep learning seems to be what everybody wants to do now. So it's very fast. It can be very accurate. Well, very fast, not true. If you want to optimize it, sometimes you could do a lot of trials, and you may let the software do some during a weekend. But the thing is that for you, it's very fast. For the computer, it can take several days, for example, to optimize and come up with something very, very accurate. But in terms of efforts, at least it's very low. It can be very accurate. It offers tools for validating prediction. Is that since you are training the software on a data sets that have been categorized, the software could assess how good the classification is. It also allows full automation. And once you have it, you could basically take any text and categorize it. It does require a large training set. If you don't have that, it may be difficult to come up with a good model. And it's sometimes low on prediction accuracy. I've seen some example of that. I could have another one. It could be insensitive to change in time or change. Anyway, you develop a model on one data set. You try to reapply it on similar data sets, but the next year, and you may find are making some predictions that are no longer accurate because things have happened. And some words were predicting maybe negative sentiment, now predict positive sentiment, trying to predict sentiment. And I've seen some of those examples. So with all of that, the first thing I want to tell you is how to avoid sentiment analysis, okay? It's very complicated, and I will give you some example of what you could do. Of course, if you don't have the choice, and there are situations where you don't have the choice, then you will have to spend some time and come up and make sure that you have a good tool. And I will try to show you what kind of results you could get. How can you avoid sentiment analysis? One way, okay, is to pair a rating question, a satisfaction or a NPS score, likelihood to recommend, with the open-end question. So, and quite often people come to me and they ask me, well, we want to do sentiment analysis. I told them, well, you have a score from 0 to 10, or from 1 to 5, or 1 to 7. Take that. That will be more accurate. If you want to see how people feel about your company, your service, take that. It will be much better. The thing is that if you also have an open-end question, then you'll be able to compare and look at how the scoring is related to the score. And let me give you an example. What I will do is I will go back and take a data set. I will take the hotel data set, and I will just show you how I could look at the review text and look, since I have a rating, and actually we took that from I think it is from Expedia. Yeah, it's 32,000 comments, and I will do a simple word frequency. I have 1.7 million words here, so okay, yeah, but I have those words. Typically, I have to remove those, so let me import a English top word list, and I will repeat the analysis. It will actually be faster because it will ignore about. Okay, so that's the score. In this case, I could do some statistics, personnel, or some non-parametrics. But what I will do instead is that I will right away go to correspondence analysis. And as you could see, it actually treats those values from very unsatisfied to very satisfied as nominal. So the software does not know that there's any order, but because of the relationship that exists, it put them in an orderly fashion. Those from very unsatisfied to very satisfied here. And I can zoom in and see which words are used. So if I had to build a dictionary for hotels, I have to make sure that worst is there, because worst is very specific to people who are unsatisfied. Horrible, dirty, terrible, smell, sheets, rude, finally, air, broken. All of those words are very specific. Some of those are more content word, typically neutral word like carpet, but rarely you go to a hotel and praise the carpet, right? But if there's something about the carpet that is not right, then you may mention it. So if I had well, I'm not sure I would include those words because it could be tricky, but those are words like that. And if I want to see words that are specific beside the name of the hotel here. Amazing, fantastic, wonderful, beautiful. But of course, there are a lot of words that I haven't looked at. And if I want to do a sentiment analysis on that, it's tricky. So the fact that you have a score, you could relate the score with this. And actually, when we did this project on course evaluation, we tried to automate that. The first question that we were asked is, okay, can you do sentiment analysis? And I say, well, I don't think it is interesting that you need that because you already have a question. But we will try to tell you what's in, if you have an open-ended, try to document that. We will try to show you what's in there and how it is related to satisfaction. And this is basically what this airline company does as well. Now, you could also, and this is also something easy, is to have two sets of open-ended questions, one for positive features and one for negative features, okay? This will allow you, and it became so easy because measuring what people are talking about is easy, but trying to assess the sentiment, whether if it's positive or negative, or how they talk about that, it's much more difficult. So if you ask them to split their response into the most things that they like the most, things that they like the least, a positive and a negative things, you get rid of the problem of trying to guess what is their sentiment or what they like and what they don't like. Because typically that's what people do. They don't necessarily want to simply know whether they are happy or not. They wanted to see what they are happy about and what they don't like, right? So much, much easier. But of course, some people will tend to answer the question at the wrong time, so you will have some mix of that. But typically, most of the people will put their response, so you could be confident if you see big difference between those two questions in terms of what they are talking about. Maybe it will give you some good idea. So that's how you prevent that. And actually, this company, this company that asked us to do this course evaluation thing, we ended up not with 2 categories, positive and negative, but actually about 20 categories of positive things and 20 categories of negative things that one could say. So we ended up building a dictionary that was much more precise, okay? And that was much more useful for them. If it is negative, it is because it is boring, frustrating, unfair, unhelpful, difficult, superficial. Or if they like it, is it because it was fun, interesting, engaging, relevant, etc. Okay? So we ended up with a dictionary like that. That was much more useful. So now, what do you get when you get a sentiment analysis tool? For many commercial tools, it's a black box. And they actually tend to put some buzzwords around it so that you'll be able to, it will justify the fact that you pay sometimes quite a lot for that. And of course, now you have a deep box, black box, and you better have deep pocket because now, and they put deep beside everything. Deep semantic, deep NLP, deep AI, deep learning, of course. But because of the deep learning big buzz, now deep has become an adjective that is seems to indicate something. So what we will try to do now is to look at the sentiment analysis black box. We will try to open it and try to see what is there. So there's a machine learning approach. Basically, you feed the software with some items that have been classified as positive and negative, and you let the software decide which words are associated with those items. There's also rule-based approach, which is similar to a content analysis approach, where you could have you could build lexicons of positive and negative words and try to see whether people use those words more often, the positive or the negative ones. It's basically a content analysis dictionary that you build, okay? And there are mixed ones that will combine some rule-based and some machine learning to create a hybrid approach that will tend to achieve better results combining both approach. What I did is I tried to look at how how different tools fare. Some of those are open sources. NRC, that was done here in Canada, UN WHO, FIN, Stanford NLP, NLTK, all of those are open source solutions. 2 of them are based on machine learning, Stanford and NLTK. 3 of them are built on dictionaries. We have our own dictionary. Actually, this is version 1.2 that was there in 2014. And you see the number of positive words and negative words. FIN had something quite unique, is that it rates words from 1 to 5, or -1 to -5, depending on the weights each word should have. So horrible should be probably a 5, and some of the words we have a lower weights because they are less intense in terms of the sentiment they express. In our case, we also take into account negation and double negation. So double negation example would be not only. It's not only good, it's okay. And so the rule actually for positive words, if a positive word is preceded by a negation, is not preceded by a negation within 4 words, we categorize that as positive. And if a negative word is preceded by a negation, but immediately before, we reverse or we shift the sentiment and we categorize it as positive. And same thing for the negative sentiment. Negative words not preceded by a negation within 1 word, and positive words preceded by negation within 4 words. And those are examples below of double negation or non-negation, nothing but, nothing less than, never to. Okay. If you use those, typically the sentiment is not shifted. And the reason why we chose different distances is that we did look at how they are associated with different outcomes. And we found that we could go up to 4 words, go down, look at 4 words before a word, a positive word in English, and it will still shift the sentiment most of the time, although it tends to decrease in terms of accuracy. But for negative words, we found that if you go beyond 1 word, quite often it won't necessarily shift. Not that bad. It's not necessarily positive, okay? Not as painful as something else. It's probably painful as well. So there's a lot of negation appearing before a word, a negative words that will not shift the sentiment. It will still remain negative. So we did some experiment with all those tools that I've seen. And actually, I did not mention the 3 companies. I won't mention them. It's 3 commercial solutions, 3 very common commercial solutions for sentiment analysis. And the thing is that what we did, we tried to see an experiment. And the idea was to take one aspect, one data set on a specific topic and try to see how good it is, how those solutions are for analyzing this specific topic, but also whether we could customize it and increase performance. So we use a data set of 10,000 Amazon reviews with 1 or 2 stars, considered them as negative, and we took 10,000 items considered at 5 stars, that had 5-star rating, and we considered them as positive. And we did look at a random sample to see whether there was a lot of errors. We didn't find a lot of errors. Out of 200, we didn't find any, actually. It's not always the case. We did that for companies' evaluation on Glassdoor. Is it Glassdoor or Indeed? Anyway, and we found that there was a lot of problems. People putting low scores, giving high positive ratings, probably by mistakes. So the scoring is by mistake, not the comment. Typically, we expect the comment to be more accurate, but in some situations, you need to make sure that this is true. So I'm showing you here a first measure. It's more a precision measure than an accuracy measure. It looks at how many prediction you do in terms of positive or negative, and you look at how many true positive, correct prediction, true positive and true negative out of all of those. And this is what we got. Let me move that. It goes from 65.9% out of 91% for company C, which is quite impressive. Our own dictionary was somehow here, actually probably the fourth one, not that good. But the issue is that this is not necessarily the best measure, because you could also look at not the precision of the prediction, but also look at all the things that have not been categorized. So, and that would typically be called neutral. When it's neutral, it's indeed not neutral. It's simply because they haven't found any word. If their dictionary is quite limited, if their lexicon is limited, they will call it neutral, everything that is not every positive or negative sentiment or any kind of comments that does not contain any word that you're looking for. That's basically how they call it neutral. Not necessarily neutral, but that's how it is typically called in sentiment analysis. And there's also some people having mixed categories. And I have mixed feelings about the mixed categories, and I will explain to you why. So basically, I have some results here, and this is the first measure. And if I move to the second measure, this is what I get. Actually, it's not this number. Actually, this one is actually lower. This the company C, that was the highest one, it was 48%. Okay, but we change the formula to bring it to 59. We give the software a chance because of the way it was computing that. Because the way typically it is being done is that if you have more positive than negative words, it is negative. If it is positive, if you have more negative than positive, it is negative. Positive equal negative, we call it mix, and no sentiment word neutral. But this is not what company C was doing. Every time there was more than one word from the other sentiment, they categorized that as mix. So they actually categorized most of the item as mix or neutral. They had a very low recall, and they were categorizing something like 54% only of all the response, even if they were all positive or negative. And by looking at those, we could see that they were positive or negative. Actually, the software was putting a lot of those on their mix because they found maybe 50 words, positive words, 2 negative words, that's mix. 50 negative words, 2 positive words, that's mix. So what we did, and what we taught is that by using this approach, in terms of accuracy, they were indeed the most accurate, but probably because they were only getting rid of the most difficult one to guess. They were only taking those that had a vast majority of positive words. So we thought that we should actually try to level off and make sure that we use the same criteria to assess that. So it went from 48.4, and it did increase to 59% by forcing the software to make a choice when there was mixed results. Okay, and our tool was okay, but the idea was actually this is, again, I play with Excel to change. This is the version 2, but the version was actually quite different. Actually, I've just seen a blog that was done last week, I think, of someone who was assessing sentiment analysis, and this is basically what they did. They look at the accuracy or the precision of the prediction, and they were comparing different solutions. But there's one important thing that is being forgotten, is the bias. So this is 70% accurate, okay? There's no bias. This is also 70% accurate. There's a positive bias. The software is more able to find or will classify more positive than negative. And this is also 70% accurate with a clear negative bias. So we decided to look at bias in sentiment score, and what we found is that there was a lot of bias. Again, this is version 2. This is not what we had initially. Again, it's a mixed, I think I have it elsewhere. The initial result was in the 20s, I think. So we were optimistic. We had pink glasses. But while 2 of those, the Stanford and this company C, had a more dark vision, and they were actually overestimating the negative sentiment. So actually, when we started with version 1.2, by doing those analysis, we knew exactly what we need to do. We need to increase the overall accuracy, but decrease the positive bias. So we spend more time to try to find new negative words. We found about not that much, but we found so we went to 9,475 words in version 1.2 to 9,526 words in version 2. So not a lot more words. But we also decrease much more the positive words. We remove positive words. The thing is that it's always the case. It seems that we have a much bigger vocabulary to say bad things about people or things than for the positive dictionary. So we definitely need more negative words to be able to have something that will be fair. But even with less words, we had a positive bias, okay? So that's how we went from 70.8% to 77.6%. We were quite happy. We went beyond that. We released version 3 last week, and we go up to 80%. But the thing is that we were able to increase that, but also the margin of error, we didn't predict more. We had the same recall, but the error went down, so we classified more things correctly and reduced number of false prediction. So the precision was higher as well, but the recall the same. And yeah, true. And it is tricky because there are some words that will predict negative sentiment at the aggregate level, but positive comments and there are some of those words that I will mention those later. If not, remind me. So in terms of bias, we had 19.7 positive bias, and we reduced that to 11.2. So that was one of the objective of this study, was to first assess how good we were, because we were not pushing sentiment analysis. I was trying to discourage people doing sentiment analysis instead, but it was so often asked to us that we tried to make sure that we will at least produce decent results. We were okay, that's okay, but it's not certainly the best, but that's what you could expect from any tool, or less, because there are situations that are quite bad. So the next objective was to try to see whether we could optimize that for a specific domain, because that's what we have been saying to people. There's no way you could take our dictionary and use it on other type of data and expect good results. And it's true for all the cases. Initially, when we started to see those companies offering sentiment analysis, they were offering out-of-the-box solution that will work in all situations. And people find out that it was not the case. It was not really universal. You have to customize it, and you have to spend quite some time. So we decided, okay, let's look at how we could do that. And we had a very specific context. It was beauty products, and it was online sales, Amazon. And if you want to really customize, you have to take those 2 items into consideration, because that will allow you to maybe come up with good results. So I put someone on that, and we tell the software, let's look at words used to describe products, the service or the company, and remove those, because quite often you will get some of those words that are not necessarily relevant. They do not express sentiment, they express description of the product. or things around the product, or the context. And we also look at words that were predicting wrong results, words that were negatively associated with the wrong sentiment, to see whether we could reassign them if needed. We found some errors, words that were put in the wrong category, but also we found ways to disambiguate them, and I will try to show you how we did that. And second step was to add domain-specific or content-specific words that were predicting of sentiment, okay? And since we had SCORE, we could use that as a support to help us identify. So those are some examples of negative words that we remove. Wrinkle, scar, cut, blemish, imperfection, marks. All of those are actually problems that you try to solve with some of those cosmetic products, right? The second category that we found is that there was a lot of words that were not predicting sentiment, that were actually associated with instruction, how you apply those, okay? Routine, drops, smear, stroke, okay, wipe, etc. So if you include that, and those are typical sentiment words that you find in many dictionaries, okay? And because of that, it was introducing some error, prediction error. We also find things related to promise or results. Okay, you want your wrinkle to vanish or disappear or decrease. So all of those are associated with the promise, what they are trying to do. And if you include those again, those are mainly negative words, like those and like those. Those were actually preventing us from making a good prediction. So we removed those to create a custom dictionary. Then we also look at positive words that should be removed. Stainless, actually it was a lot of reference to stainless steel. Corrected, proof, settled, star. Star, this is an interesting one. Singular form, star. They gave 1 star. Star is on Amazon very, very predictive of negative sentiment. We actually decided not to put that into to the negative part, but we could have done that. If our context was to analyze customer feedback on Amazon or some websites, I would put star definitely in the sentiment dictionary. But if I want to create something more general for cosmetic product, star may not be a good prediction. Stars with an S, more associated with positive sentiment, but star in the singular form, that's very predictive of negative sentiment. And there are some words like skeptic that were actually predicting positive sentiment. I was skeptic. So we create a rule: if skeptic followed was or is preceded is followed by but, then we could categorize that as positive. And proof, like waterproof, smog-proof, wet-proof, we should have that, add those phrases, and maybe remove proof by itself. Stainless, like in stainless steel. Comed, for comedian, but comedogenic is not something that you want to see in your product. So if it was predictive of negative sentiment. And we also find a lot of negative words that we added to the dictionary, words that are not necessarily in the sentiment dictionary. And that were actually in none of those dictionary. Dried, watery, runny, flammable, chemical, okay, smudge, okay, manure, okay, overeaten, goop, okay. So all those words, as well as context words, and those were interesting: return, calls, contact, reimburse, send it back, notified, authorized, warranty. Those words, very predictive of negative sentiment. Actually, in our version 3 of the dictionary, we even create a category for interaction with someone. And of course, it worked well if you have that kind of relationship. You purchase something. I often tell people, how many people here in the room call several times to say that they are happy about their product they purchased? Probably no. But you will call them when there will be some issues. So they become predictor of sentiment in an online order context. Same thing for warranty. You mention warranty when you have a problem. advertising, and the other one was all things related to the advertising, publicity, pictures, photos, description had, because if there's a gap, if you're not happy, it may be because there's some gap between what the photo and the product you receive, or maybe the promise that they made and the results you got. So you will mention those quite often, and they become predictive of negative sentiment. So, of course, that's in the context of an online order of a product. If I apply that to, I don't know, to political speeches, or to some evaluation of a company or of employees, they may not actually work as well. And we also had some positive words that were very specific to those beauty products: silk, velvet, cashmere, firmer, absorb, hydrate, refreshes, disinfect, exfoliate. All those words were actually, and words like dream and signature and holistics were also predictive of positive sentiment. And what we got is we were able to go from 77.6 to 82.5% by customizing it. It took about 4 days for the person to do that. We added some tools after that. It would probably take a couple of days to now come up with that kind of results, because we did implement things specifically to assess dictionaries. And that is quite useful for sentiment dictionary. And for the bias, we went from 11.2 to 7.6. We still had a positive bias. Could work on that, continue working on that, but it would have taken more time. Okay, so the bias is important because that's a dimension that is very rarely discussed among people who are doing sentiment analysis. You can be very precise, totally biased. And by the way, if you want, in terms of precision, to have something very precise, you create a lexicon with 2 words: awful for negative and wonderful for positive. And you will, in terms of precision, with the first index that I show you, I could get a 100% precision, but a less than 1% recall, right? So you have to take into account what you can classify or not. What about machine learning? So what we did is we did a simple experiment. We take these data sets, and we had a much bigger data set of beauty products. So we took 20,000 of them. We simply did a naive Bayes machine learning. And naive Bayes, you feed, and we fed 4,553 words, the most frequent words. And we asked the naive Bayes to simply look at those words, see how each of those words are related to positive and negative sentiment, and weight those and multiply those probabilities and come up with some prediction. This is how naive Bayes works. And we use a leave one out cross validation. So it means that we did develop a model on 19,999, and we tried to predict the one that we removed, but we did that 20,000 times. And we simply then try to apply that on another data set of 20,000 product reviews. And what we got was 93.7%. So with the classification, so we used the 1, 2 versus 5 as what to predict. We did a naive based on that. Then we applied that on 20,000 other reviews. What about the bias? 0.6. Very good. We started with a 50% positive, 50% negative. There are, even when we do not balance it, we could get something quite close to that. Okay. Now, why should you use machine learning? Because it's often more accurate than the lexicon approach. Better recall. It will actually categorize. It did categorize all 20,000. none of them were categorized as zero, as neutral. It's very fast to develop, and it requires very low effort and no domain expertise. Okay? And you don't need a dictionary. An hybrid approach, which I think should be better, would be to do this machine learning, not on all the words, but on only the words in a lexicon. And the reason is that if you are, for example, you have a company and you have problems with spare parts, and it's a real example that I've encountered. You have a company that has problem with spare parts. And if you do machine learning on their customers' evaluation, spare parts will become predictive of negative sentiment. Now they identify those, they act on those. Now you take your model and you reapply that the next year. And every time someone will talk about the spare parts, would maybe mention the fact that it's so easy to get some spare parts and there's no problem of availability of spare parts, then it will still be predicting negative sentiment. Indeed, they are talking about the service. So you should at least remove words associated with your service, with your company, with your product name when you do that. But if you do a naive based on simply all the words, it will actually take all the words, including those that are not necessarily relevant, but may still be related to this. So again, you have a cell phone company and you have problems with batteries. It may be bad 1 year, next year it would be good, but the model will actually continue predicting negative sentiment if you mention batteries. Okay, so why not always use machine learning? Well, first, you need a large data set. If you have a few hundred, it may not be enough. Sometimes it is enough, but quite often you need a big data set. It's a bag of words classification that may rely on irrelevant words like those that I've mentioned, like spare parts or battery. It may be insensitive to change over time. I'll just give you an example. It is context specific. So you do machine learning on one data set and you try to apply it on another domain, just like a dictionary or a lexicon approach. It may not work across domain or across context. Okay? Some of those are also quite obscure, black box, and maybe harder to explain. We did work, I did present at a defense conference, and one of the issue was deep learning. One of the problem with deep learning is that you can get very, very precise prediction, but nobody, not even the data scientist, can explain why. It's a model that built itself and that gives good prediction. And if someone has to justify a decision, or it's very hard to justify if you don't know exactly how the software came up with this prediction. It's not true for all machine learning approach. There are some decision tree, for example, that are very easy to understand, but some of those are much harder to understand. Naive Bayes, you could actually get the probability of each word, so you could guess which words were used and how they contribute to the decision made. And sometimes it does not perform well. If I did a project where we were trying to analyze for a large corporation, we tried to analyze and predict which domain a specific news about the company was about, whether it was about healthcare, education, and we were able to get good prediction for some of those vertical markets, but when it comes to government, their government vertical market, impossible. Why? Because there was so many things about education, healthcare, defense, et cetera. They were not able to achieve a good prediction. So it doesn't work all the time. So that's the reason why I told you that in terms of accuracy, either a dictionary or a machine learning, it's between 0 and 100%. Okay. Actually, this is specific to word stuff. The thing is that if you want to build a dictionary, you have to be able to disambiguate that. There are some words, and like you saw before with the sexual scale from the Luke, it is based mainly on words. And the problem is that if you want to build a precise dictionary, you need to be able to differentiate different use of the same words. And one way to do that is to maybe use some phrases or use some context or rules or proximity rules. And many lexicons, what they will do is that they will apply the words and they will simply match any item that match those words. And there's an issue with that because you cannot disambiguate. While if you can specify in advance how things should be assessed, it may be possible to use phrases to disambiguate words. And in WordStat, we have a pretty specific ways we express. And some people complain about that. They don't understand why it is so useful. So for example, phrase will always have precedence of words. So a word part of a phrase will be categorized in one way. And if the word is not found in this phrase, then it may be categorized in another way. This way, you could take a word, find some expression, and take this expression and say, this is a false positive. Let me put this in an exception box or elsewhere, or let's put that in the negative box while the words itself is positive. And I will try to give you some example of that as well. Also, you could use wild patterns and wildcards, but if you have a full word, the full word will have precedence over the word with a wildcard. Okay, so tax. So if you're looking for tax and you put TAX star, which means any number of words after that, okay, you will match tax, taxes, taxation, but you will also match taxonomy, taxidermy, and taxi. Okay, so if you put TAX with a star, but if you put taxi, the full word, taxis, taxonomy, and taxidermy, then every time the software will see something that starts with TAX, it will categorize it in one way if it's followed by S or taxation, like taxation, but it may categorize taxi, taxidermy elsewhere. I don't recommend do word stemming. That's my personal opinion. Some people like to do that. If you do machine learning, you may do it. Try it with machine learning. But if you try to do some dictionary rules, and the reason is that some words will have different sentiment associated with that. We worked with a company and we tried to do sentiment, some kind of sentiment analysis, and we found that improve E was associated with negative comments and improve ED with positive comments. I think that fortunately will be limitized with the same as fortune, okay? But fortunately predict negative sentiment. Okay, things went bad. Fortunately, something came up. Okay, fortunately, we found that that's the kind of word that typically we could put in a positive dictionary that actually predict negative sentiment overall, but it points to a positive aspects of the comment. And that's what I mentioned. And there are some of those words, but. The word but tend to indicate a mixed kind of review. And if it's positive before, the but will predict something negative. And there are a lot of words like that. And we look at some of those and we found a lot of words like that we thought that would be, well, finally, fortunately, will predict something negative. And there are some of those words that seems to suggest that would typically be put in a positive dictionary, but the tense of the verb is very crucial. So again, if you stem or lematize the tense of the word, may prevent you from seeing this. I was skeptic. I am skeptic versus I was skeptic could make something that's useful. This is easy in English. In French, I would say it's much more difficult. Because in French, there's about 40 different ways to write a single verb. And some of those will be predicting sentiment, positive sentiment. The other ones will be, the conditional form will be, may predict negative sentiment. The present tense may predict positive sentiment, something like that. So either stemming or lemmatization could be tricky. I tend to keep those for machine learning. How do you develop a sentiment dictionary without a sentiment score? Because there are two situations. You could have one of those sentiment score. So like a rating. And that's great because you have some guidance as to what will be positive and negative. But so if you don't have a sentiment score, the first thing I would say is, well, search for existing sentiment dictionary. First, if you have to start from scratch, try to see whether there are some existing dictionary that exist. There are some of those that have been created for product reviews, hotel reviews, restaurant reviews, political science, financial news. So if there are a lot of people doing sentiment analysis, for good or for worse, they are developing lexicons for measuring sentiment. Make sure that you know on what kind of data sets they have, what kind of data set they have used to develop it, and in what context. Also search for similar data with sentiment score. If you have, for example, a hotel and you receive comments from your customers by emails or otherwise, maybe you could go on Expedia or TripAdvisor and scrape some comments to try to see what are the words that people use when they are satisfied or not. So even if the final data sets that you want to analyze does not have any score, because when people send you, you don't, there's no score necessarily attached with that. So you could maybe get some data sets that have those scores. If you still don't have anything that has been scored, maybe you should consider scoring some of those. And of course, it could take time. It's a manual scoring. And this is where a qualitative approach of coding is necessary, is that you need someone that will look at the comment and will try to categorize it as either positive or negative. And by doing that, you'll be able to maybe use that as a guide to identify positive and negative words. Now, asking one of your employees to do that could be quite time-consuming, but also quite expensive. What you could do is maybe use some crowdsourcing sources to categorize those, and you have to be careful. I won't explain to you how to do a quality control on a crowdsourcing task, which is by itself a full workshop in itself. But the thing is that you could ask, for example, Amazon Turkey could recruit people that will categorize that, and you pay them very low amount, and you make sure that it is categorized by more than one people, and that you do some spot checks, etc. And you can end up with a very low cost with a large data set that has been categorized as positive and negative. And if you end up with a sentiment score, then this is what you could do. Well, if you, no, actually, it's follow procedure for the next slides. But if you don't have a dictionary, and if you want to build it, what you should do, and let me switch there, what I will do is I will take this beauty products data sets. And by default, I think the software will bring 300 words. I could get more. Yeah, maybe not that much. Okay. So if you, and of course you could, by extracting the most frequent words, the thing is that rather than trying to put the words that you think may be associated with that, look instead at which words people use. You may have some surprise. If you're a linguist, you may like what you see here. If not, yeah, some linguists will spend years analyzing some of those. So, okay. Here I have a rating scale, but let's forget about that. But again, if I look at air, this is actually, strangely, this is more associated with positive. Oh yeah, this is beauty products. This is not hotel. In hotels, air predict negative sentiment. in beauty products, probably not necessarily that predictive, okay? Love, okay? And actually, you see that, but if you don't have it, okay, you already identified love. Well, I mean, the love word, identifying love is something, is something else, okay? Stars, yeah, we know that the plural form, okay? Star, you see? And some of them, okay, recommend, okay? So you could find some of those, and in fact, waste, okay? So I can start with that because the more you start with high frequency words, the more likely you will get a good recall right away. Okay, again, if I go down, I look at disappointed. Again, rarely a negation will predict. Not disappointed, it's not necessarily a way to say it, but so you look at those words, you had those words, but the thing is that we did implement, and if I look at recommend, we did implement thesaurus behind, so the software could actually tell you what could be synonyms, related words, or words with the same start. If I look at, let me look at smells, you see all those words are being suggested. Disappointed, deceived, failed. So all of those appear from the text. So frustrated, frustrating. Okay, I could take those, and now I could start building dictionaries. And let me do that quickly. I don't have any category, but I can simply drop onto a new category, and I could start building my dictionary here. Okay. Okay, recommend. If I haven't had this idea of using negation, I may be tempted to add that. But one thing that I could do, and that is crucial, is that I could do and that is useful for any text analysis task, is a keyword in context. The keyword in context allows you to see how the software is being used, and let me maximize that. What you could do is look at words that appear before, and here I have all the words. They are sorted in what appeared before, but what we did is that we also summarized it here. So highly recommended occurred 376 times, but not recommended 266. Okay? So I already know that, yeah, this, I should probably put that recommend. I could definitely keep it as positive, but I could put not recommend into a negative category. Okay? And I could go on like that. Okay, would recommend it, okay? And the thing is that I do have the rating, but you don't always have the rating, so you have to make sure that when you read a comment that you will see some of those and try to guess whether it's positive or negative. Cannot recommend, that would be another one that I would have. So by adding those, as soon as the software will find, and let me remove this, okay? Okay, cannot recommend. If I add that to negative, I can now take recommend itself and add it to a positive category. Okay, so by looking at those, you could see that most of the time it is positive, while in some cases, like those that we identified, they are negative. So the idea is that you have to look not only at what comes before, but also what comes after. Word could be the same thing. Art, for example, could be considered maybe negative, but if I do a keyword in context, so by focusing on the most frequent words, you get more coverage more quickly. But this here, because we are showing you synonyms that aren't in your text, you could actually get more quickly to those low frequency words that may appear only once or twice or at low frequency, but get those pretty quickly. So you assign them to a positive and negative category, you obtain synonyms, hypernyms, hyponyms. We do have WordNet insights. If not, you could get free copies of WordNet in different formats and look for words that are related. And make sure that you add inflected forms, you extract and add phrases, Phrases, I love phrases because they are unambiguous quite often, and they have less meaning. A word can have 5, 10, up to 75 different meanings, but a word within a phrase, or a phrase itself will have usually one meaning, maybe two. Content analysis is one that have at least two meanings in the literature, but qualitative and quantitative. But the longer the phrase, the more specific it is. And when you extract phrases, if you look for example, healthcare, maybe totally irrelevant for you if you're only analyzing healthcare documents, but healthcare costs, healthcare coverage, healthcare reforms will be more specific, okay? And you have to validate entry manually using the quick listing, and it is important to validate and disambiguate if you can, because, well, there is someone who proposed some rules, and I can bring those rules. It may apply for sentiment dictionary, although it could be problematic to do so, but this rule is that every word you have, every entry you have in your dictionary should match what you're looking for 80% of the time. And if it don't, try to disambiguate it and remove those false positive. And take those phrases like the recommend, okay? By moving away not recommend and cannot recommend, we probably got that 80% of the time recommend was used. Beside those, as positive. But before, with those, we were below 80%. But by identifying those phrases that change the meaning or the sentiment, by putting those away, you could actually reach this 80%. Sometimes you cannot disambiguate enough. One solution is to remove the word, but instead look for phrases containing this word that will be true positive. Okay? So, and I will show you the reference where you could get that. If you do have a sentiment score, this is where you could actually try to use a classification score to try to see how those words are related. And you will see a lot of those words that you thought would be positive that predict negative, or the reverse. Negative words like skeptic, we were surprised to see that for beauty products, skeptic was predicting positive sentiment. I was skeptic, okay? I tend to, when I first developed the dictionary, I tend to get rid of those neutral one or those middle score. But of course, you need to have a big data set, so don't eliminate too much. If I had less data sets, I could have taken 1, 2 versus 4 and 5. In our case, we had quite a lot of things about beauty products, hundreds of thousands of reviews. So we simply took the 5 and 1 and 2, or the ones. I think the ones, only the ones. So basically, by doing that, you can find things that are quite good. At some point, you may need to look at the neutrals, how the neutrals differentiate themselves. And there are some words that are specific to neutrals. Okay, and clean, for hotel, clean and comfortable is quite neutral usually. Okay, but basically, you look at the relationship between words. I tend to look at least 20 times or more, because otherwise you may, if you look at a word that appears only twice, it may be associated with this sentiment by chance. So by focusing on high frequency words, you get more chance of selecting the right words. And actually, when I do a crosstab, and let me try, well, actually, when I do a crosstab on a sentiment score, you could compute a correlation. We look at what would be the best way to identify the correct words. And if you do a correlation, it's like a behavioral correlation, and it will. And I don't like correlation because it's not the best measure to really identify how specific things is. It is dependent on how many positive or negative you have. We found that the best metrics we found was the Summers D, asymmetric Summers D. Y, X. So try to predict X from Y. X being the score that you have, And by doing that, no matter where you are in a scale, those it would be somehow similar to if you look at the proportion of time it appear associated with sentiment, and the proportion of time it appeared to be to a positive versus negative. And if you do the ratio between those two, whether you're comparing 20% versus 40% versus 1% and 2%, the summary will be constant. The correlation will be affected. And so it will not be easy for some of those low frequency items to identify those, while the summary asymmetric will put all of those together. We did implement also a simple ratio of positive negative in a later version of WordStat, so that you could do that both in the keyword and in context. So the keyword and context will show you what are the words before and how they are associated with the outcome. But you could do that with any measure, any statistical tool. But if you do the asymmetric summary D, Y, X, and use the independent variable being the score and the words being the dependent variable and the word frequency, you will actually get a very good empirical description of which words are associated with positive comments, which words are associated with negative comments. And again, you have to do the same kind of task. You have to validate the tool, the dictionary that you develop, in order to make sure that they are measuring things. But you have to know that you have developed that dictionary. When you will apply it in a different domain, it can go wrong. You will need to restart again. And for example, the dictionary that we did, we decided to label it for product evaluation. We tried, and we were able with version 3 that we released last week to go from 76% to 82% and bias almost 0. Very, very good. I think it was 1%. Okay. Then we applied that on Glassdoor evaluation. Horrible. I would not recommend. I would not touch it for course evaluation or for personnel evaluation or company evaluation, because again, it was developed for product evaluation and consumer product evaluation, and also in the context of online orders or online reviews, hotels, restaurants, electronics, books and films, and what we had, airlines as well, and we had a few other ones I don't remember. So we created several big data sets, and we tried to improve the dictionary based on that. But again, if I had to apply that for personnel evaluation, I would start from scratch, probably, because it is not good. I can tell you, don't use it for that. So on that, we do have some time for some question. I'm not in a hurry to go back, but so I can stay as long as you want. Almost. I have a plane to catch, but so if you have any question or if you have any experience you want to share. The thing is that you have to take into account how people use the words, and I often say that, well, the worst argument that I've seen is from a linguistic point of view, is that, for example, some people will say, well, okay, I want to put this word in this category, but the linguist will say, yeah, but I can build a phrase or a sentence that would mean something else. And I have this kind of argument that my people who are working on the dictionary, they give me, but I tell you, okay, don't bother with how it could be used, look at how it is being used. And if it's skewing your results, or if it's actually being used most of the time in a specific way, you should take that into account. You should look at how people use the language, not how a linguist thinks of all the possibilities it could be used, right? And if you have some of those words that does introduce some bias or some shift the outcome in a way that is not appropriate, you should remove that. And And one example, and actually for many years we didn't want to release any dictionary. We were using those in some project, but we didn't want to release one. And we had to wait one. We found actually that one researcher, actually two researchers, developed a dictionary for financial news. And I like their articles, and I was recommending their articles because what they did is that they took some sentiment dictionary and they found that actually they made a mistake. I did not agree with one of their conclusions. They took the Journal Inquirer dictionary, but the Journal Inquirer is a big dictionary that has some positive and negative dimensions, and they put all the negative dimensions and the positive dimension and put those together. The problem is that the Journal Inquirer was using a lot of rules to disambiguate words, but they simply look at the words. So it's normal that they didn't get good results. But the thing is that they found that 70% of the words, but actually most lexicons don't have any rules. It's simply lexicons. And they found that 70% of the words were not predicting sentiment, were irrelevant for financial news, or were actually predicting the wrong thing. Okay? Mining could be negative. But if you have a gold mine, it's not negative. And a lot of things were associated with context, with the industry. And that's the reason also why some sentiment analysis fail in some time when they cannot differentiate the domain from the sentiment. And this example that we did with this company, where the sentiment analysis failed, not using our tool, but someone else's tools, is that the software for sentiment analysis was not differentiating the domain from the sentiment, and the domain was internet security. Virus, intrusion, infection, all of those words were all categorized as negative. And indeed they are negative, but they were saying good thing about this company that was trying to fix them. So that's an issue. You have to forget about the dictionary itself. Well, I don't believe that any dictionary could be used as is. So you need to look at how it is used, and you look at what are the things that drive the sentiment. So the high frequency words that are in one of those categories, you look at those, you do a keyword in context, and that's how you find, like this sexual scale. Well, Dick Cheney is one example. And it would be easy. I could put Dick Cheney, put that into an exception list and get something that would be closer. So there's no way you could use a dictionary without doing this thing. Of course you could do it. And you could even publish something on that and write something on that. But I hope for you that you won't do the keyword in context after your paper is published, because you may find that, whoa, there's a lot of things that you found that were wrongly classified. So you have to do this check. You need to find a good keyword in context tool or concordance tool that will show you for the words you have, and especially high frequency words you have, how they are being used. But there's also all the missing ones that you don't have and that you cannot check unless you look at words that have been categorized and words that have not been categorized. Yeah, because some topic, and this is what this airline company does, is that they look at, they do topic modeling, but they have a score that is measured independently, and they look at how the topic models are related to the score. And that's pretty easy to do if you have an independent score. But trying to do sentiment, yeah, you will get, because some of those topics will clearly be negative if they co-occur together. For example, in the hotel reviews, carpets will likely be associated with some words, carpets, wallpapers maybe, and torn or old or dirty, I don't know. So you will be able to see clear negative topics that will occur. But do you want to simply categorize those as positive and negative? Let me show you one example. Here I have hotel reviews, and I have the rating, which is here, which goes from 1 to 5, okay? And I could go there. LDA also, one of the issue with LDA, or many people who are doing topic modeling, is that they don't put any frequency criteria. So you could get a pretty low frequency word that is by chance associated with some topics. So here I will simply do a word frequency on those 30 something, 32,000 comments. Okay. Again, I have a score. Let's do, NMF is very fast. I will do this topic enrichment, and I will simply run that. 30 topics may not be enough. This is the enrichment thing. So the software tried to improve it by adding phrases, finding misspellings. The misspellings are not added automatically, but I could. So this post-processing is quite unique. We haven't found that. Because we think that topic modeling is quick and dirty, we try to improve that with phrases, with words. But here, I have access to the satisfaction score, right? I can see it, how it is related. But I could jump and do a crosstab and see how it is related to satisfaction. So if I have a measure of sentiment that I could do on the text, save that, then I could compare this, and here it create a temporary dictionary with all those words and phrases, and words are weighted, the first words being better. And here I didn't change the name, but if I simply do that, okay, dirty and carpet. Fountain View, that's the Bellagio, probably. Okay, friendly and helpful, not all hotel in Las Vegas. So free Wi-Fi, wireless internet seems to be more neutral or unsatisfied, but those are, so here I'm doing topics and I'm comparing it with hot water and shower, wallpaper peeling, fire alarm. Yeah, that's usually fiction, political science. If you were from the APSA conference a couple of years ago, no, okay, yeah, we had a fire alarm. The old hotel, one of the biggest hotel in the United States. Everybody spent the night outside. 3 fire. So that's an experiment that yeah. The next year, the conference was canceled because of a hurricane. It was in New Orleans. Then the year after that, it went to San Francisco, and everybody was expecting the big one. So here is topics, and this is basically what this airline company does. They have been doing topic modeling with the old version that it had this enrichment, and they were doing that. But actually, I think that they may have and they were making decision. But if I had an hotel, I could right away, and if this was comment about my hotel, I would right away know where to put my money, or maybe sell it. Dirty carpet, wallpaper, I should renovate differently, right? So you could make a quick decision out of that. But of course it's imprecise, but if you could get the answer right away, this way, nice. So topic modeling is one of the techniques that extract topics. Some of those topics will tend to be negative by definition, like those ones. But if you could relate that to some scores, that's even better. Okay, so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. And if you go to some political science, sometime we go there. ICA, I'll be there next week, but market research conference, especially Quirks. FESOMAR, yeah, we haven't done FESOMAR for many years. Maybe we should do. Yeah, but yeah, that's, and I presented sometime. ICA, I did present a few times, but here I'm simply exhibiting. So, and I may attend some of the paper session. Yeah, I like, if I like to attend those, but I'll be with the book exhibit. But I did present with several people, including Robert Hedman, who is doing media framing analysis. And we presented together some paper as well. So it's part of the many conference we do. We do also things in AI or big data. So if you see us and if you want free consulting, you come and see me at the booth. And either from the software or any other topic, research topic interest that is related to text, it will be a pleasure for me to answer your question.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.